Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the live studios here in Govardhan, ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram. And now we've had a little change of venue. We're in my room, Keshavadari Das Goswami's famous room in Govardhan. I've been told that it's the most wonderful room in the universe. Of course, I haven't talked to everybody in the universe, but I got some thumbs up going around in the room. Okay, so it's a little different now. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be, I can't say it's going to be sweeter because our fearless leader, Vaishika Prabhu, is over in the other room doing what he needs to do to catch up on work and projects and things like that. But we're going to be with you every night now, from now on. At this time, we apologize for being late today. For those of you who aren't going to be able to watch live, because we're recording this and we're going to have to update it or upload it to the Facebook page later on. We're having technical difficulties. There's not enough bandwidth on my phone to be able to record this live on Facebook. That's because there's so many people here during Kartik using phones, and it's just the way it is. We'll try to make another adjustment for tomorrow night so that we can have live, just in case anyone wants to watch live. But for now, here we are. We're back on the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and before we do, we're going to read Sanatana Goswami's beautiful prayer to the Bhagavatam, which I do as a vow every day before I read the Bhagavatam, and it goes like this: Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu, Kalidwanduditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Mannistaraka Madbhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy. I bow down to you. Asadu Sadutadayin, Adini Chochatakada, Hanamun Chagadachin Mam Premnarit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love, which I take it as a cue from Sanatana Goswami, always to read the Bhagavatam out loud. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. He's telling us, always read this Bhagavatam out loud. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, here we are, back in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 1. We're going backwards now because we just finished the 7th canto. Don't worry, soon enough we're going to hear that all again, just to refresh our mind. And we're supposed to be hearing this again and again, according to Srila Prabhupada's purports. So we're online and ready to go. And we apologize again before we start that we're not live. But our trusty techie, Bhakta Matt, is going to upload this recording to our normal Facebook page, fan page of a Facebook account. So you'll be able to watch it at your convenience. So remember, to jog your memory, Vidura was traveling and met Uddhava after Uddhava was sent by Krishna to Badarakasham. And Maitreya Muni, who happened to be with Krishna and Uddhava when Krishna was giving Uddhava his last instructions, heard everything. And by hearing from Krishna directly the instructions to Uddhava, Maitreya became a pure devotee. He wasn't a pure devotee before he came into that scene. But by hearing from Krishna the last instructions when he was on the earth to Uddhava and sending Uddhava up to Badarakashram, Maitreya became a pure devotee. And later on, when Uddhava met Vidura, when he was traveling, there was a beautiful exchange in which Uddhava remembered all the pastimes of Krishna, and then Vidura, and then revealed to Vidura that Krishna had left, Yadu dynasty had left, and the battle of Kurukshetra had happened, and that everybody was gone, which was quite a emotional and intense section of the Bhagavatam. And then, when Vidura wanted to take initiation from Uddhava refused, and he said, "You have to take initiation from Maitreya, because I'm young enough to be your son, and that would be against the etiquette." So then, and he said, "I happen to know that Maitreya is just nearby." So Uddhava met Maitreya, and what we're hearing now is the answers by Maitreya Muni to Vidura's questions. And we've come to the point at which, after Lord Brahma did Maitreya is explaining to Vidura the history of the universe and the creation of the universe. And Brahma has appeared, and he has done his austerities, and now Krishna, he's offering prayers to Krishna. And therefore this chapter is called Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. And it goes like this. Text 1. Lord Brahma said, "O my Lord, today, after many, many years of penance, I have come to know about you. Oh, how unfortunate the embodied living entities are, that they are unable to know your personality. My Lord, you are the only knowable object, because there is nothing supreme beyond you. If there is anything supposedly superior to you, it is not the Absolute. You exist as the Supreme by exhibiting the creative energy of matter." Purport. The highest peak of the ignorance of the living entities who are conditioned by material bodies is that they are unaware of the supreme cause of the cosmic manifestation. Different people have different theories regarding the supreme cause, but none of them are genuine. The only supreme cause is Vishnu, and the intervening impediment is the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord has employed his wonderful material energy in manifesting many, many wonderful distractions in the material world. And the conditioned souls, illusioned by the same energy, are thus unable to know the supreme cause. The most stalwart scientists and philosophers, therefore, cannot be accepted as wonderful. They only appear wonderful because they are instruments in the hands of the illusory energy of the Lord. Under illusion, the general mass of people deny the existence of the Supreme Lord and accept the foolish products of illusory energy as supreme. One can know the supreme cause, the personality of Godhead, by the causeless mercy of the Lord, which is bestowed upon the Lord's pure devotees like Brahma and those in his disciplic succession. By acts of penance only was Lord Brahma able to see the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and by realization only could he understand the Lord as he is. Brahma was extremely satisfied upon observing the magnificent beauty and opulence of the Lord, and he admitted that nothing can be comparable to him. Only by penance can one appreciate the beauty and opulence of the Lord, and when one is acquainted with that beauty and opulence, he is no longer attracted by any other. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 259. Padam dvishtva nivartate. Foolish human beings who do not endeavor to investigate the supreme beauty and opulence of the Lord are here condemned by Brahma. It is imperative that every human being try for such knowledge, and if anyone does not do so, his life is spoiled. Anything that is beautiful and opulent in the material sense is enjoyed by those living entities who are like crows. Crows always engage in picking at rejected garbage, whereas the white ducks do not mix with the crows. Rather, they take pleasure in transparent lakes with lotus flowers, surrounded by beautiful orchards. Both crows and ducks are undoubtedly birds by birth, but they are not of the same feather. Text 2. The form I see is eternally freed from material contamination and has advented to show mercy to the devotees as a manifestation of internal potency. This incarnation is the origin of many other incarnations, and I am born from the lotus flower grown from your navel home. So Brahma's home is the lotus flower, and it's coming from Krishna's navel, so he's born from the lotus grown from your navel home. So this is the home of Lord Brahma. Pretty nice home, I'd say. Purport. The three deities Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara, Shiva, the executive heads of the three modes of material nature, passion, goodness and ignorance, are all generated from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is described herein by Brahma. From the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, many Vishnu incarnations expand at different ages in the duration of the cosmic manifestation. They are expanded only for the transcendental happiness of the pure devotees. The incarnations of Vishnu, who appear at different ages and times, are never to be compared to the conditioned souls. The Vishnu Tattvas are not to be compared to deities like Brahma and Shiva, nor are they on the same level. Anyone who compares them is called a Pashandi, or infidel. Tamasat, mentioned herein, is the material nature, and the spiritual nature has a completely separate existence from tamaha. Therefore, spiritual nature is called avobodharasa or avarodharasa, avabodharasa or avarodharasa. Avaroda means that which completely nullifies. In the transcendence, there is no chance of material contact by any means. Brahma is the first living being, and therefore he mentions his birth from the lotus flower generated from the abdomen of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Text 3. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas jasmitat pataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can only be partially known, and only by the process of devotional service to the Lord. Lord Brahma became aware that the Supreme Lord Krishna has many, many eternal blissful forms of knowledge. He has described such expansions of the Supreme Lord Govinda in his Brahma Samhita 533 as follows: Advaitam achyutam anadam ananta rupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atmabhakto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is non-dual and infallible. He is the original cause of all causes, even though he expands in many, many forms. Although he is the oldest personality, he is ever youthful, unaffected by old age. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be known by the academic wisdom of the Vedas. One has to approach the devotee of the Lord to understand him. The only way to understand the Lord as he is by devotional service to the Lord, or by approaching the devotee of the Lord, who always has the Lord in his heart. By devotional perfection, one has to understand that the impersonal Brahma Jyoti is only a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and that the three Purusha expansions in the material creation are his plenary portions. In the spiritual sky, or the Brahma Jyoti, there is no change of various kalpas or millenniums, and there are no creative activities in the Vaikuntha worlds. The influence of time is conspicuous by its absence. The rays of the transcendental body of the Lord, the unlimited Brahma Jyoti, are undeterred by the influence of material energy. In the material world also, the initial creator is the Lord himself. He brings about the creation of Brahma, who becomes the subsequent creator, empowered by the Lord. Text 4. This present form, or any transcendental form expanded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is equally auspicious for all the universes. Since you have manifested this eternal personal form upon whom your devotees meditate, I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Those who are destined to be dispatched to the path of hell neglect your personal form because of speculating on material topics. Purport. Regarding the personal and impersonal features of the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personal forms exhibited by the Lord in his different plenary expansions are all for the benediction of all the universes. The personal form of the Lord is also worshipped in meditation as Supersoul, Paramatma, but the impersonal Brahmajyoti is not worshipped. Persons who are addicted to the impersonal feature of the Lord, whether in meditation or otherwise, are all pilgrims to hell, because, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 12.5, impersonalists simply waste their time in mundane mental speculation because they are addicted more to false arguments than to reality. Therefore, the association of the impersonalists is condemned herewith by Brahma. All the plenary expansions of the Personality of Godhead are equally potent, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Dipartyadeva hitashantanam abhyupetya dipayate vivrita hetu samana dharma yastadrigeva hyadvishnutaya vibhati govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Lord expands himself as the flames of a fire expand one after another. Although the original flame, or Sri Krishna, is accepted as Govinda, the Supreme Person, all other expansions, such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Varaha, are as potent as the original Lord. All such expanded forms are transcendental. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is made clear that the Supreme Truth is eternally uncontaminated by material touch. There is no jugglery of words and activities in the transcendental kingdom of the Lord. All the Lord's forms are transcendental, and such manifestations are ever identical. The particular form of the Lord exhibited to a devotee is not mundane, even though the devotee may retain material desire, nor is it manifest under the influence of material energy, as is foolishly considered by the impersonalists. Impersonalists who consider the transcendental forms of the Lord to be products of the material world are surely destined for hell. Pretty good reason for hearing the Bhagavatam, I'd say, offhand. Hare Krishna. Text 5. O my Lord, persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, carried by the air of Vedic sound through the holes of the ears, accept your devotional service. For them, you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. Purport. For the pure devotee of the Lord, there is nothing beyond the lotus feet of the Lord. And the Lord knows that such devotees do not wish anything more than that. The word "to" specifically establishes this fact. The Lord also does not wish to be separated from the lotus hearts of those pure devotees. That is the transcendental relationship between the pure devotees and the personality of Godhead. Because the Lord does not wish to separate himself from the hearts of such pure devotees, it is understood that they are specifically dearer than the impersonalists. The relationship of the pure devotees with the Lord develops because of devotional service to the Lord on the authentic basis of Vedic authority. Such pure devotees are not mundane sentimentalists, but are factually realists, because their activities are supported by the Vedic authorities, who have given oral reception to the facts mentioned in the Vedic literatures. The word paraya is very significant. Para, bhakti, or spontaneous love of God, is the basis of an intimate relationship with the Lord. This highest stage of relationship with the Lord can be attained simply by hearing about Him. Hare Krishna. Let's hear that again. The word paraya is very significant. Para bhakti, or spontaneous love of God, is the basis of an intimate relationship with the Lord. This highest stage of relationship with the Lord can be attained simply by hearing about Him, His name, form, quality, and so on, from authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, recited by pure, unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So by hearing from Srila Prabhupada the verses and particularly the purports, we can actually get spontaneous love for Krishna. Of course, it has to be done with full faith and love, without argument. But if we can manage to do that, and even if we aspire to do that, just aspiring to do that, according to Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami, makes us eligible for liberation in this life. There's one statement by, it's either by Rupa or Sanatana Goswami, that says that if one wants to live in this world and not be contaminated by material nature, he simply has to make it his aspiration to be a pure devotee of the Lord. So just by aspiring for this, we get the benefit. Text 6. O my Lord, the people of the world are embarrassed by all material anxieties. They are always afraid. They always try to protect wealth, body, and friends. They are filled with lamentation and unlawful desires and paraphernalia, and they avariciously base their undertakings on the perishable conceptions of my and mine. As long as they do not take shelter of your safe lotus feet, they are full of such anxieties. Purport. One may question how one can always think of the Lord in regard to his name, fame, quality, etc., if one is embarrassed by thoughts of family affairs. Everyone in the material world is full of thoughts about how to maintain his family, how to protect his wealth, how to keep pace with friends and relatives, etc. Thus, he is always in fear and lamentation, trying to keep up with the status quo. In America, they call it keeping up with the Joneses. In answer to this question, this verse, spoken by Brahma, is very appropriate. A pure devotee of the Lord never thinks of himself as the proprietor of his home. He surrenders everything under the supreme control of the Lord, and thus he has no fear for maintaining his family or protecting the interests of his family. Because of his surrender, he no longer has any attraction for wealth. Even if there is an attraction for wealth, it is not for sense enjoyment, but for the service of the Lord. A pure devotee may be attracted to accumulating wealth just like an ordinary man, but the difference is that a devotee acquires money for the service of the Lord, whereas the ordinary man acquires money for his sense enjoyment. Thus, the acquisition of wealth by a devotee is not a source of anxieties, as is the case for a worldly man. And because a pure devotee accepts everything in the sense of serving the Lord, the poisonous teeth of the accumulation of wealth are extracted. If a snake has its poison removed and bites a man, there is no fatal effect. Similarly, wealth accumulated in the cause of the Lord has no poisonous teeth, and the effect is not fatal. A pure devotee is never entangled in material worldly affairs, even though he may remain in the world like an ordinary man. Text 7. O my Lord, persons who are bereft of the all-auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. Purport. The next question is why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons and, in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. So this is the reason why distribution of literatures, book distribution, Harinam Sankirtan, and any kind of preaching activities in particular are so dear to the Lord. In the 18th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says that such a devotee who does this tries to explain to people the glories of the Lord, or the message of the Bhagavad Gita in particular, are dear to him, and no one is more dear, and no one will ever be more dear. Text 8. O great actor, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion, and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I'm very much aggrieved for them. This sounds like Prahlad Maharaj, which shows that anybody in the disciplic succession of Brahma should think like this. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord like Brahma and persons in his disciplic succession, didn't mean to horn in on Prabhupada's purport there. A pure devotee of the Lord like Brahma and persons in his disciplic succession are always unhappy to see the perplexities of the conditioned souls who are suffering the onslaughts of the threefold miseries which pertain to the body and the mind, to the disturbances of material nature, and to many other material disadvantages. Do you remember what we heard about Prahlad Maharaj just the other day? He was happy and unhappy at the same time, simultaneously. He was happy because he was always thinking of Krishna, always meditating on Krishna, and therefore he was completely satisfied. He didn't need anything else. But he was unhappy because of seeing others suffering. This is Pardukha Dukhi. This is the mentality of a pure devotee. We should cultivate this mentality. If we're actually hearing this philosophy properly, and when we look out in the world, wherever we move around in the world, and we see how much people are suffering, we should feel bad about that. And that compassion should compel us to action, or impel us to action, to do something about it. Mainly distributing books, actually. Distributing Prabhupada's books. Not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. And there's your marching orders, boys. There's your marching orders right there. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. So this is what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted us to come to the Holy Dham regularly, if not once a year, but at least regularly, and hear and chant in this atmosphere. And in case you didn't notice, those of you who are here for the first time, chanting Hare Krishna is a lot easier here than it is anywhere else. And hearing is a lot easier than anywhere else. It just goes in like, I don't know, like baby pablum, like just digests. It says right from the beginning of the Bhagavad, Dravya Samyatam, like all partially digested food. It's already digested by our acharyas. And here in this atmosphere, so just see, the devotees who want to stay here and work on their own devotional lives are elevated and they're wonderful. But Prabhupada went out. No one could have been more properly situated than Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. Living in the Radhanatha temple, right there next to the Yamuna River, in Radha temple, like Jiva Goswami's temple, looking out the window while he was taking prasadam at Rupa Goswami's samadhi at Bhajan Kutir. He'd look right out the window and pray, and he did. And a couple of times Rupa Goswami actually appeared to him before he left. I don't know if you knew that, but he told that to us. This is a speculation. He actually told us that Rupa Goswami came to him and blessed him. before we came to America. So this is the thing. We come here, we hear and chant in this elevated spiritual atmosphere and get fired up, and then go out and try to strain our brains how to deliver this message to the people in general, and bring as many as we can back here so they can experience this bliss. So says Lord Brahma. So says Prabhupada. Text 9. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. So this is a clear, simple idea. You have to give up the desire for sense gratification. Even if you're not strong enough and sometimes fall victim, that has to be our desire. And that desire has to be cultivated, made stronger and stronger. And it's made stronger and stronger by stopping sense gratification. Vishaya vinvartante nirahara sidehina rasavarjam param drishtani vartate. The taste for sense enjoyment may remain, but if you stop it, just stop doing it, then a higher taste comes. Then you can be fixed in devotional service. Purport. The whole trouble of the living entity in material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He is always dependent on the rules of the Supreme Lord in both the conditioned and liberated states. But by the influence of the external energy, the conditioned soul thinks himself independent of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. His constitutional position is to dovetail himself with the desire of the Supreme Will, but as long as he does not do so, he is sure to drag on in the shackles of material bondage. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parta manogatan. He has to give up all sorts of plans manufactured by mental concoction. The living entity has to dovetail himself with the Supreme Will. That will help him to get out of the entanglement of material existence. Text 10. Such non-devotees engage their senses in very troublesome and extensive work, and they suffer insomnia at night because their intelligence constantly breaks their sleep with various mental speculations. They are frustrated in all their various plans by supernatural power. Even great sages, if they are against your transcendental topics, must rotate in this material world. Purport. As described in the previous verse, people who have no taste for the devotional service of the Lord are occupied in material engagements. Most of them engage during the daytime in hard physical labor. Their senses are engaged very extensively in troublesome duties in the gigantic planets of heavy industrial enterprise. The owners of such factories are engaged in finding a market for their industrial products, and laborers are engaged in extensive production involving huge mechanical arrangements. Factory is another name for hell. At night, hellishly engaged persons take advantage of wine and women to satisfy their tired senses. But they are not even able to have sound sleep because their various mental speculative plans constantly interrupt their sleep. Because they suffer from insomnia, sometimes they feel sleepy in the morning for lack of sufficient rest. Sound familiar, boys? By the arrangement of supernatural power, even the great scientists and thinkers of the world suffer frustration of their various plans and thus rot in the material world, birth after birth. A great scientist may make discoveries in atomic energy for the quick destruction of the world and may be awarded the best prize in recognition of his service or disservice. But he also has to undergo the reactions of his work by rotating in the cycle of repeated births and deaths under the superhuman law of material nature. All these people who are against the principle of devotional service are destined to rotate in this material world without fail. This verse particularly mentions that even sages who are averse to the principles of devotional service to the Lord are also condemned to undergo the terms of material existence. Not only in this age, but formerly also, there were many sages who tried to invent their own systems of religion without reference to devotional service to the Supreme Lord. But there cannot be any religious principle without devotional service to the Lord. The Supreme Lord is the leader of the entire range of living entities, and no one can be equal to or greater than Him. Even the Lord's impersonal feature and the all-pervading localized feature cannot be on an equal level with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, there cannot be any religion or system of genuine philosophy for the advancement of the living entities without the principle of devotional service. The impersonalists, who take much trouble in penance and austerity for self-liberation, may approach the impersonal Brahmajyoti, but ultimately, because of not being situated in devotional service, they glide down again to the material world to undergo another term of material existence. This is confirmed as follows: Yenye rivindaksha mumukdamaninas tvayasta bhavad abhishuddha buddhiyat aruya krishtrina padam tadat patanjado nadrita dushpadam rayaha. Persons who are falsely under the impression of being liberated without devotional service to the Lord may reach the goal of the Brahmajyoti, but because of their impure consciousness and for want of shelter in the Vaikuntha lokas, such so-called liberated persons fall down into material existence. That's 10.2.32. You can open the door and see if somebody wants in. Well, come on in. Sami Prash has come into the atmosphere. Now we have a fact checker. Have a seat, please. Make yourself comfortable.
I was wondering if I could borrow a charger for you.
Right now we're right in the middle of the reading. And we're being recorded. Yes, so we're going to continue. Therefore, no one can manufacture any system of religion without the principle of devotional service to the Lord. As we find in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the initiator of religious principles is the Lord Himself. In Bhagavad Gita also, we find that the Lord condemns all forms of religion other than that which entails the process of surrendering unto the Supreme. Any system which leads one to the devotional service of the Lord and nothing else is actually religion or philosophy. In the 6th canto, we can find the following statements of Yamaraj, the controller of all unfaithful living entities. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam navai vidur rishayo nap videvaha nasiddha mukya asura manushyaha kuto navidya dadacharanad dayaha swayambur naradak shambhu komara kapilo manu pralado janako bhishmo balir vayasakir vayam dwadashaite bijanimo dharmam bhagavatam vataha guham vishudam durbodam yam yat mam rita ashnute. The principles of religion are initiated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and no one else. Sorry, folks. Including the sages and demigods, can manufacture any such principles. Since even great sages and demigods are unauthorized to inaugurate such principles of religion, what to speak of others? The so-called mystics, demons, human beings, Vidyadharas and Charanas living in the lower planets? 12 personalities, Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Kumara, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj, Bhishma, Bali, Shukadev Goswami, and Yamaraj are agents of the Lord authorized to speak and propagate the principles of religion. Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3, 19 to 21, and we just heard that, didn't we? The principles of religion are not open to any ordinary living entity. They are just to bring the human being onto the platform of morality. Non-violence, etc., are necessary for misguided persons, because unless one is moral and non-violent, one cannot understand the principles of religion. To understand what is actually religion is very difficult, even if one is situated in the principles of morality and non-violence. It is very confidential, because as soon as one is conversant with the real principles of religion, he is at once liberated to the eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Therefore, one who is not situated in the principles of devotional service to the Lord should not pose himself as a religious leader of the innocent public. The Ishopanishad emphatically forbids this nonsense in the following mantra: Andam tamak pravishyanti ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo ya u sambhutyamritaha. Ishopanishad 12. A person in ignorance of the principles of religion, who therefore does nothing in the matter of religion, is far better than a person who misguides others in the name of religion, without reference to the factual principles of devotional service. Such so-called leaders of religion are sure to be condemned by Brahma and other great authorities. Therefore, we should learn this philosophy. Text 11. O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears. By the process of bona fide hearing. And thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. I mean, what a classic verse. Tvam bhakti yoga paribha vitarit saroja ase chutek pato nanunata pungsang yad liya ta urugaya vimayayanti tat tad vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you.
Wow.
Purport. The statement here is that the Lord manifests himself before the devotee in the form in which the devotee likes to worship him, indicates that the Lord becomes subordinate to the desire of the devotee, so much so that he manifests his particular form as the devotee demands. This demand of the devotee is satisfied by the Lord because he is pliable in terms of the transcendental loving service of the devotee. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.11. Yayatam mam prapadyante tang sataiva bhajam yaham. We should note, however, that the Lord is never the order supplier of the devotee. Here in this verse, it is particularly mentioned, Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita. This indicates the efficiency achieved through the execution of matured devotional service, or prema, love of Godhead. This state of prema is achieved by the gradual process of development from faith to love. On faith, one associates with bona fide devotees, and by such association, one can become engaged in bona fide devotional service, which includes proper initiation and the execution of the primary devotional duties prescribed in the revealed scriptures. This is clearly indicated herein by the word Shutekshita. The Shutekshita path is to hear from bona fide devotees who are conversant with Vedic wisdom, free from mundane sentiment. By this bona fide hearing process, the neophyte devotee becomes cleansed of all material rubbish, and thus he becomes attached to one of the many transcendental forms of the Lord as described in the Vedas. This attachment of the devotee to a particular form of the Lord is due to natural inclination. Each and every living entity is originally attached to a particular type of transcendental service because he is eternally the servitor of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya says that the living entity is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Therefore, every living entity has a particular type of service relationship with the Lord eternally. This particular attachment is invoked by the practice of regulated devotional service to the Lord. And thus the devotee becomes attached to the eternal form of the Lord, exactly like one who is already eternally attached. This attachment for a particular form of the Lord is called Sarup Siddhi. The Lord sits on the lotus heart of the devotee in the eternal form the pure devotee desires, and thus the Lord does not part from the devotee, as confirmed in the previous verse. The Lord, however, does not disclose himself to a casual or unauthentic worshipper to be exploited. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 725. Yeah, this room is a little more exposed, isn't it? The atmosphere in this room is really special. The Lord, however, does not disclose himself to a casual or unauthentic worshipper to be exploited. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 725. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha. Rather, by yogamaya, the Lord remains concealed to the non-devotees or casual devotees who are serving their sense gratification. The Lord is never visible to the pseudo-devotees who worship the demigods in charge of universal affairs. The conclusion is that the Lord cannot become the order supplier of a pseudo-devotee. But he is always prepared to respond to the desires of a pure, unconditional devotee who is free from all tinges of material infection. I mean, that's quite a purport, isn't it? Quite a purport. The process of advancing from faith to love is very nicely explained here by Srila Prabhupada. I'm tempted to stop here and take reflections. We've been going for about 50 minutes. I think we'll do that. We'll stop here and take reflections. We can discuss what Lord Brahma has said so far to the Lord. Hare Krishna. And if we have reflections, we're going to share this little bumblebee microphone with whoever wants to give a reflection. Yes. Take it. Brought to that as a reflection.
Reflection. I think it's so wonderful that if someone is their true motive is to engage in devotional service with Krishna, that a real relationship with God is where He's like your best friend. Like he wants to serve you and do things for you out of just reciprocation. Like you have pure love for Him, He has pure love for you. And it's like a friendship, like a deep, close friendship.
Yeah.
And it's a different paradigm to think of God in those terms,
Yes.
like a person.
In ordinary religious teachings, this concept doesn't even exist, and therefore it's very important. This purport is extremely important because Suridam Sarvabhutanam, Krishna reveals in the Gita that He's actually the best friend of everyone, all the time. He's always the best friend of everyone. So it's actually up to us. I mean, what is He not showing us? How much a friend He is to us. He's giving us this body, which can allow us to fulfill our material desires. He's providing all of the sense objects and whatever else that we use in this world to be comfortable and happy and even live, just to stay alive. The air and the water and the food and everything. So these are all symptoms of His love for us. But the problem is with us. The problem isn't with God. He's there as our friend all the time, and He wants to be our friend. So I think your point is very well taken. But it should be emphasized that the onus is on us, actually. The onus is on us to be honest and sincere, and as you said, to aspire to pure devotional service, and not be, as it says in the purport, a pseudo devotee, who is here actually to make Him the order supplier and get what we want, because it says in the books that He'll give us what we want. So we come and pretend like we're serving just to get what we want. And He's not going to respond to that. He won't respond to that. But that doesn't mean He's not our friend. He's already showing how much a friend He is to us. But on another level, this friendship that you're talking about is an example of spontaneous, of his response to spontaneous love, and it's very, very interesting. This purport is so nice. It starts out that the devotee hears. What was it he said? Or maybe it was the verse before. Anyway, this is clearly indicated by the word Shutekshita. The Shutekshita path is to hear from bona fide devotees. And then before, I think it was the verse before, the purport before, it talks about how the devotees drink, the nectar of the Lord's words and glories through their ears.
There's another verse that said they smell There's another verse that the devotees smell the lotus feet of the Lord through their ears by hearing the Vedas through their ears.
Yes, and that indicates that devotional service can't be done by the material senses. It can only be done through the spiritual senses. But another part that I thought was particularly interested here, it says, Prabhupada says, therefore every living entity has a particular type of service relationship with the Lord eternally. Now listen to this. This particular attachment is invoked by practice of regulative devotional service to the Lord, and thus the devotee becomes attached to the eternal form of the Lord. Exactly like one who was already eternally attached. So this is very, very important, because there's a class of devotees, or I don't want to call them pseudo devotees because they're devotees. Even the sahajas are devotees. They're just misguided and not serious. They're casual, as mentioned here in this purport. They think that it's because it's the desire that convinces the Lord to accept them on that level. They think that if they want a certain relationship with Krishna from hearing about it, then that's the greed that the Lord is talking about. But this greed that actually motivates the Lord to show the form that they want to see is not just, a casual desire. It's not even intense. It's very intense desire. And it can only be had by the purification of the senses. And the purification of the senses is done by the regulated process of devotional service. So this is a very, very, it's controversial actually. In some devotees, in some different lines of authority, they think, you have to give up the regulated principles. You can only get to Vaikuntha by the regulated principles. But that's not true. If you're Ishtadev, if you're hearing from a person that's in the line from Lord Brahma in disciplic succession, and your Ishtadev is Lord Chaitanya and Radha and Krishna, then the regular principles that you follow according to the instructions of the spiritual master after initiation purify the heart to the point where your desire becomes very strong and it becomes real, serious, and then the Lord becomes attached, and then He'll show Himself to us. So Rupa Goswami said, even if you're on that platform, externally you should act like a regulated devotee. You shouldn't go off to Radhakund and try to be a spontaneous, lover of Krishna and look back on ISKCON or whoever, delivered you from this knowledge and criticize it all, that it's lower, and now we have the highest thing and we have the highest so many things. This is very, very important purport. I'd like to point it out to all of those of you who are listening in. And again, I'm apologizing for not having a live broadcast. And I apologize for the lateness of this, but I guess I don't need to apologize for the lateness because it wasn't a live broadcast anyway. But whoever you are and whenever you're listening, please continue to listen, complete to hear this. These prayers by Brahma are so important. Now we're here in Govardhan, and it's getting late for us. We're pretty regulated over here, and we started a little bit late. And I'm going to close the session tonight because it's going to make it easier to upload it. It'll be easier to upload if it's shorter. So I want to again thank everyone for coming, and the devotees who are here in the room with me. Thank you very much. And for all those who are going to be listening to this, the resuming of this nightly broadcast of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it'll be a little bit shorter than it was in our Kartik Vrat, 5 hours a day, but it's ecstatic, and it will get more and more ecstatic as we settle in and hear and chant together and reflect on what we hear. So we thank everyone again. We look forward to seeing you online and hopefully live. We had a little technical difficulty today. Somehow or other, the phone that I have and the service provider, it wasn't a strong enough signal to support us, recording live on the Facebook. But we did this once or twice. I think it was once. Was it? Yeah, once before our Kartik Vrat. So it's possible, and we will make every effort to make it work. Even if we have to get another device, we may have to get another Geo device tomorrow, and then we can use that as the hotspot. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Kartik Vrat ki jai, Gaur Prem Manandi, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you all and see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.